Picture a massive fleet of giant industrial power plants going full tilt. That's what 14 gigawatts of energy actually looks like. And get this, by 2027, that is exactly the amount of dedicated energy capacity Meta alone wants to secure for its AI infrastructure. We are officially way past the days when AI was just, a clever little software novelty running quietly in the cloud somewhere. Looking at the data from July 2026, it's clear AI has rapidly mutated into this global physical infrastructure that demands a literally unimaginable amount of resources.
So, welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us today because, wow, the entire landscape has shifted beneath our feet. If you've been tracking this space, you know the AI conversation used to pretty much just be, okay, what can it write, right? But now, the core question echoing through global boardrooms and government halls is, what can it actually do? Today, we're going to unpack exactly how this maturation played out over a wild July 2026. We'll look at the massive shift to physical infrastructure, the oceans of capital at play, and of course, the intense geopolitical drama it's all creating.
All right, let's take a quick look at our roadmap for today. We'll start with the shift from chatbots to agents, then move into the physical AI era, check out the global AI chessboard, and finally wrap up with risks and market realities. Let's dive right in.
Part 1. From chatbots to agents. The fundamental way we interact with AI, it completely flipped this past month. We're really no longer just having cute chats with our computers. For the last few years, we've lived in what you could call the prompt era. You ask a question, you get an answer, and the AI just sits there, waiting passively for you to tell it what to do next. But with the launch of OpenAI's ChatGPT work and Anthropic's Claude Code, we've officially crossed over into the project era. The core unit of AI measurement is no longer the prompt, it's the project. These systems are now acting like persistent workers. You can hand them a broad objective and they'll go off and operate across your files, surf the web, use different tools, and literally work for hours in the background to hand you a finished deliverable. We're talking complete spreadsheets, full presentations, or even totally tested software code.
Now, what's super interesting here is this intense mid-year price war that's broken out. You aren't just picking one AI model anymore. You're actively matching different models to specific workloads based on cost and capability. On one end, you've got OpenAI's GPT-5.6 Sol giving you raw frontier-level reasoning, but at a premium, $5 in, $30 out. But then look at xAI's Grok 4.5. They are aggressively undercutting OpenAI's premium pricing to push for massive cost efficiency, but, and it's a pretty big but, that cheaper price tag definitely comes with a catch. Independent tests have flagged a staggering 54% hallucination rate with Grok. So enterprises are stuck playing this constant balancing game. Do you want incredible capability, or do you want raw cost savings?
And it's not just text either. The way we physically speak to AI has totally transformed. OpenAI just launched GPT Live, which finally moves us away from those clunky walkie-talkie style interactions where you have to awkwardly wait your turn to speak. This new system uses a full duplex architecture. In plain English, it means it can interpret your pauses, handle your interruptions naturally, and, this is the crazy part, delegate complex reasoning to a frontier model running in the background without ever breaking the flow of your conversation. This is absolutely a game changer for hands-free professional workflows, field operations, and especially customer support.
Moving on to Section 2, the physical AI era.
So as mind-blowing as our software is getting, the biggest bottleneck for AI isn't the code anymore, it's the actual physical atoms needed to run it. Remember that massive 14 gigawatt number we opened with? Well, get a load of this figure, $26.5 billion. That was the size of the record-shattering US NASDAQ debut for SK Hynix this past July. And SK Hynix isn't some flashy new app startup. They're a South Korean memory chip giant. Right now, they control over 56% of the global high-bandwidth memory market, which is absolutely mandatory for running advanced AI accelerators, like the ones NVIDIA makes. The broader market is finally waking up to the fact that the companies controlling the physical layer, the chips, the memory, the power grids, they are the true gatekeepers of this whole AI economy.
And honestly, that physical layer isn't just about massive data centers either. It's about AI literally moving around in the real world. We are seeing a flood of capital pouring into physical AI and robotics right now. For instance, Japan's leading manufacturing giants just formed a massive coalition around NVIDIA's Cosmos 3 Edge to build models for industrial automation. Then you have Unitree Robotics locking down a $619 million IPO specifically for humanoid robots and smart manufacturing. And over at Agility Robotics, they moved toward a massive $2.5 billion SPAC to push their commercially deployed humanoid robot Digit even deeper into logistics. So AI isn't just sitting there making digital recommendations anymore. It's out there executing physical tasks.
Which brings us to part 3, the global AI chessboard. With all of this raw power and capital on the table, the big question is, who actually controls this incredibly resource-heavy infrastructure on the global stage? In July, 169 countries actually got together at the UN Global Dialogue in Geneva to hash this exact issue out. And what we're seeing is this really fascinating clash of global perspectives. On one side, you have the United States, which increasingly views frontier AI as a critical national security asset, something subject to executive authority and super strict export controls. But on the flip side, the Global South views AI as a fundamental, necessary resource for development. They make the case that unilaterally cutting off access to advanced AI has real devastating economic impacts on developing nations. So this whole concept of sovereign AI, meaning a country owning and controlling its own local intelligence infrastructure, is rapidly becoming a top priority all over the world. And sitting right smack in the middle of this geopolitical tug-of-war is the European Union. The newly set up EU AI office is quickly becoming a massive regulatory heavyweight. But experts are pointing out a really interesting tension here, which they call the third place paradox. Basically, the idea is that it's a whole lot easier to implement aggressive transparency rules and risk classifications when your country isn't the primary host of the US and Chinese tech giants that are actually building these models. While these strict EU regulations are trying to set the global ethical standard by leveraging access to the European market, there is a very real risk here. They might inadvertently overregulate and end up starving their own local European startups of the capital and the flexibility they need to compete on a global scale. The incredibly high stakes of this global chessboard were perfectly illustrated on July 8th. The Chinese government issued a red alert, essentially claiming that Anthropic's Claude Code contained a US intelligence backdoor designed to secretly siphon off user data. Now, in technical reality, Anthropic actually deployed this specific code as an anti-piracy measure. It was just there to stop unauthorized API resale and keep their outputs from being used to train rival models. But China officially framed this tracing code as an offensive security threat. This whole incident is a massive wake-up call, proving that AI coding tools aren't just software products anymore. They are now viewed as highly classified intellectual property and primary targets in an ongoing global national security audit.
And that leads us to our final section, risks and market realities. So, we've talked about the incredible capabilities and these huge global ambitions, but now we kind of need to ground the hype in the stark realities of cybersecurity and modern financial markets. The dual-use nature of AI has literally never been more obvious. On the defensive side of things, Anthropic's Claude Mythos model successfully hunted down Squidbleed. That was a critical vulnerability hiding deep in 29-year-old open-source code. Think about that for a second. This bug is literally older than many of the engineers who built the AI that just found it. That is a huge win for cyber defense. But in that exact same month, we witnessed the very first fully autonomous AI ransomware attack. We're talking about an attack operating at lightning speed with absolutely zero human input at the keyboard. The threat landscape is escalating so wildly right now that the Bank of England officially had to issue warnings about the financial stability risks tied to all these debt-fueled investments flooding into AI and the massive cyber vulnerabilities they're exposing. Which brings us to a really crucial point. Investors are finally waking up to the hard financial realities of AI integration. Just consider this MIT research data on enterprise generative AI pilots. An astounding 95% of these enterprise pilots currently show absolutely no measurable impact on the bottom line. None. Only 5% are actually moving the needle. The initial honeymoon phase of companies just wanting to say they have AI exposure is over. Capital markets are getting ruthless. They are now demanding defensible intellectual property, proprietary data, and real durable revenue to justify these sky-high valuations. Which ultimately leaves us with the defining question of July 2026, and honestly, probably the rest of the decade. We've proven that the software works, right? AI has successfully shifted from simple prompts to complex, persistent projects. It can write the code, do the reasoning, and even command physical robots in the real world. But as it scales up to consume gigawatts of electricity and hundreds of billions of dollars in memory chips and data centers, can it actually generate enough real economic value to justify that massive drain on energy and capital? That right there is the multi-trillion-dollar question defining our physical and digital future. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. I really hope it helped you connect the dots, and I will see you next time.